Going on, guys? All right. Sorry for the last couple postponements, but we are now live. We got one of our favorite guests coming on the show tonight, so stay tuned.
Fantasy football, you dealing with the best. Keep it hype, authentic, this ain't nothing like the rest. With the Armchair Fantasy Show podcast, give advice for all the listeners to improve your stats. Yeah, we live on goingfor2.com. Tuesdays and Fridays, this is what you want. Talking dynasties and daily drafts, and we just getting started, that ain't even the half. Yeah, so go ahead, tell your friends to join. Going for two, cause no one remembers the extra point. Hey, goingfor2.com, the Armchair Fantasy Show.
What is going on, guys? All right, welcome to episode 137 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I'm your host, of course, Jeff Lambert. You can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. Presented as always by goingfor2.com. We are live on Facebook Live, Periscope, and YouTube. Of course, syndicated on all major podcast networks and streaming in the Going For 2 app for iOS and Android. I'm here as always with my co-host, Mr. Ryan Searfoss. Ryan, how you doing tonight, man?
Fantastic, man. Ready to do over bracket. The Dynasty Draft Room Draft Guide went on sale today. It's pinned on my profile. Check it out. It's absolutely awesome. It's only $10 with 91 rookies scouted. And if you want, we have Zach's on there too for both for 15. And he has defensive players as well. Please check it out. It's incredible. And I mean, a lot of people can't leave their house. It'll give you something to read.
Yes, definitely. It's really nice looking. I mean, I do a lot of graphic stuff for my website, and I don't know who did y'all graphics, but it looks amazing. It looks very professional and very well done. So definitely check that out, guys, for sure. Also joining us tonight, like I said up at the top, one of our favorite guests to come on this time of year and talk about these prospects for the NFL draft, Mr. John Laub, Mr. Gridiron Scholar himself from footballdiehards.com. John, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing great, man. I love hanging out on a Friday night talking NFL draft prospects. I've spent the last 6 months watching these players throughout the college football season, been studying film for the last 2 months. I have my profiles on footballdiehards.com, and I work with on dynastydraftroom.com with their videos. So I'm excited to talk about it tonight.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Glad to have you on. And just give us a quick rundown of your history as far as, how long you've been playing fantasy. You've been out here before, but tell some of my listeners about your history in fantasy.
So this is my actual 32nd season playing fantasy football. It will be my 12th season playing college fantasy football. My first draft pick ever was Dan Marino in 1989, wow. Baby. The second pick overall. The first pick that year was Randall Cunningham, and the third pick was Jim Everett. The game was so different. Rookie Barry Sanders was a 6th round pick that year because we just didn't understand the value of running backs back in 1989. Remember, we were doing this on a win and a prayer. We were just drafting, having fun. 8 of us in. I was in grad school, hanging out in our apartment. So it's been a long time. This is my 7th year publishing my profiles on footballdiehards.com. I absolutely love it. Every year I learn more and more about how to analyze prospects, how I judge them. I hope I'm getting better. I believe I'm getting better. But you know what? I always go back. I reflect on mistakes I made, successes that I had, but I usually learn from mistakes more than successes and try to incorporate that next year when I look at the prospects.
Oh man, good stuff, man. That's you got me beat by about 10 years. I think I started in 98, so you're almost 10 years more than me on that fantasy side there. So pretty crazy stuff there. Dan Marino, wow. There's people watching this show right now that are like, who's Dan Marino? And you had him on your fantasy team. So
oh my God. And look at, man, if you've never, anyone, go back to the tape of 1984, man. 48 touchdown passes, over 5,000 yards, the first quarterback to do it. And I'll tell you, the greatest game I ever saw, Jets and the Dolphins in the old in New York City, in New Jersey, technically. Sorry, I can't remember the name now. The Meadowlands. O'Brien versus Marino. I think the final score was 48-42, and they threw for over 900 yards and 9 touchdowns. And it was $20 to get in the game. I scalped the tickets with my best friend,
Nice.
who was a Jet fan. Never forget that day, dudes.
That's awesome. That is so awesome.
I'm a little bit jealous.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
Marino was like the first player I remember just loving watching play football.
Yep.
Oh,
But it was tail end of his career.
oh yeah, he was special in the mid-'80s, man. Just special.
Definitely. All right, real quick, let me promo something that I got going on. I kind of pitched this idea in a couple Facebook groups to see if people would bite on this, and I'm kind of coming up with it as I go. So basically, every sport right now is sort of on hiatus because of this whole coronavirus thing. And I played daily fantasy, so I was like, how do I come up with something for daily fantasy that's going on right now? And I came up with a daily fantasy NFL draft. Basically, what I've done, I went and got the top 80-ish prospects. I've already attached prices to all of them, just like in daily fantasy. And you're going to build a fantasy roster out of prospects. So 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, a tight end, and a flex spot. And then depending on where they get drafted, you will earn fantasy points for your team. So I'm going to be putting that out here pretty shortly. If you want to be in the league, just email me at goingfor2fantasysports@gmail.com. Again, that's goingfor2, the number 2, fantasysports@gmail.com. I'll be sending it out on Twitter and Facebook as well and getting some signups. It's $5 per lineup. Hoping to get a good number of lineups in there and have some fun with the NFL draft and a little bit of daily fantasy as well. So be on the lookout for that, guys. All right, let's talk about the concept of tonight's podcast. So we did this last year with John as well. I picked the top 32-ish. I mean, it's up for debate what the top 32 are, but I picked the top 32 of what I thought they were. We put them into brackets, and then we basically went on Twitter and had you vote on each bracket, on each matchup, and came up with the winner at the very end. So we came up with 32 players divided into 4 divisions, and the divisions basically are based on the number 1 seeds. So the 4 number 1 seeds were Jonathan Taylor in one, DeAndre Swift in the other, and then Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb in the other 2 divisions. Those are all our number 1 seeds. So for the first round, we're just going to go through all the 1/8 matchups, and then we'll go through the 2/7s and so on and so forth. And we're just going to talk about the loser of each round, so we're not repeating ourselves over and over again through the entire thing. We'll just kind of mention who the matchup was, talk about the loser since we won't talk about him again the rest of the podcast, and just kind of go from there. So we'll start off in the Jonathan Taylor division. The matchup with Jonathan Taylor was Darrynton Evans. So we're going to go to you, John, real quick. Jonathan Taylor won this matchup 95% on Twitter for obvious reasons. But give me a little bit of rundown on Darrynton Evans and what you see from him.
I'm a huge Darrynton Evans fan. Now, I had watched him, and I owned him in college fantasy football. Hey, in 2019, he was first-team All-Sun Belt and Offensive Player of the Year. This is a very good prospect. Now, I liked him on film, but when you watch these group of 5 running backs, to me, I always question their speed, agility, and burst. Will it translate to the NFL? But when I saw him pop a 4.41 in the 40, he has the speed, and at 5'10", 203 pounds, he's big enough. I have him as my 12th rated prospect right now. Obviously, he can't win this matchup, but I love him. A 3rd round of a dynasty draft acquiring Darrynton Evans.
Good stuff. Ryan, any thoughts on Darrynton Evans?
Yeah, I mean, I like him as a nice change of pace back for you mix him with a little bit of a banger and have him be this fastball to go with it in the next round. But, I mean, this matchup, he's a little bit overmatched. And I will say I had him in my college fantasy team that won for me, and he killed it. And I 100% saw it on one of your articles, and that's the only reason I knew him.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, so Jonathan Taylor is moving on to that matchup. Let's go to the other 1/8 matchup, and that was DeAndre Swift and Hunter Bryant. Obviously, Swift won this matchup 96% to 4%. I think Hunter Bryant's mom must have voted for him because I don't know who that 4% actually was. But John, give us your thoughts on Hunter Bryant and his prospects in the NFL.
So Hunter Bryant's going to be a little bit dependent upon landing spot. I do think he's a little bit Evan Ingram-ish. He's going to be needed to use as an H-back, a wing-back, put him in the slot, move him around. But, man, he had a great catch percentage, 65%, 148 career receptions at Florida Atlantic. His 40-yard dash was 4.74. I have him as the 4th-ranked tight end prospect coming out of Florida Atlantic. I like this owl. He's got really good size at 6'5", 243 pounds. Again, I have a 3rd-round NFL grade on him. I would take him in the 4th round of a dynasty draft.
All right, good stuff. Ryan, what about your thoughts on Mr. Hunter Bryant?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree about the 4th round thing. I'm not a huge fan of the smaller tight ends coming up, so that's why I'd probably fade him a little bit. But no, he definitely has upside, and I think he's a guy who can have some big games. I like him more maybe as a DFS play down the line than a long-term prospect for me.
All right, good stuff. All right, let's move over into the other 1-8 matchup, and that's the Jerry Jeudy division. Jerry Jeudy versus one of my favorite players, Antonio Gibson. Ryan, we'll go to you first this time. Give me your thoughts on Antonio Gibson. Oh, you're on mute, Ryan.
Oop, I apologize. I love Antonio Gibson. He's so versatile. I have him probably ranked a lot higher than I should. Personally, I like him as a running back who they can split out, move around. I think he may be a guy without a position to some extent. Maybe hopefully he'll be dual position for fantasy-wise, but I like what he can do. I could see him in a use like the Steelers use Jalen Samuels, but a lot more athletic. I love everything about his game. He's explosive, 220 pounds. He tested great. He has a lot of speed. I think he's an interesting prospect. I hate to see him go this soon in it, but I like the upside. And he's one of my guys I'm going to be grabbing later drafts all over the place.
Definitely, and I didn't give the percentages there, so Jerry Jeudy won this one 93% to 7%. John, go ahead and give us your thoughts on Antonio Gibson.
First, I really liked him because I'm a fan of the American Athletic Conference. I'm a big fan of the Memphis Tigers. I love watching them. Antonio Gibson won me a lot of money in college fantasy football down the stretch. He was so hot. My only question is, he looks like a running back. He has the size of a running back. He was used as a wide receiver for Memphis. They put him on a lot of jet sweeps. They got him out in space. How will he be used in the NFL? I hope they put him in the backfield. He's got that size and speed ratio, which I would very much like to see him employed as a runner. But is he going to be thought of as a wide receiver? That's still up in the air. But I do like him. And hey, man, in the 4th round of a dynasty draft, Gibson is a great home run prospect.
Yeah, I love Gibson, like I mentioned at the top there. And, you know, I did a profile on him on goingfor2.com. And you're right. I mean, you watch him. He looks like a running back. He's built like a running back, but he plays receiver. So he's very versatile. I think if he goes somewhere with a creative coach, a Sean Payton type or Andy Reid type that knows how to use those kind of abilities, I think he will thrive in the NFL for sure. But if they pigeonhole him into one thing, he may struggle a little bit early on. But if they can find a way to use him, I think he's definitely an offensive weapon for sure. All right, let's look at the last 1-8 matchup here. And we got CeeDee Lamb going against number 8, Bryson Hopkins. This matchup was won by Jeudy, obviously, by 96% to 4%. Ryan, give me your thoughts on Bryson Hopkins.
I haven't dove a ton into the tight ends yet. I have him as one of my top tight ends this year. I think he's a guy who you can kind of move around. I think he can do a little bit of everything, and he should be a starter in the league, which is huge at this point in anything fantasy-wise because it's an absolute mess right now. But yeah, I think it's kind of a landslide victory here, or Lamb here.
All right, let's go over to John. Give us your thoughts on this guy.
I like Bryson Hopkins. He's my number 1 tight end right now. He's 6'4", 245 pounds. Look, I understand he's not a great positional blocker. He has some issues with his hand, so I understand that there are some holes in his game. But, he was first team all Big Ten and tight end of the year in the conference. His dad is Brad Hopkins, and I'm old enough to remember watching Brad Hopkins block for the Tennessee Titans and Houston Oilers. He played 13 years in the NFL. Hopkins was very good at Purdue this year. 130 career receptions, 15 yards per catch. He has good athletic ability and good speed. He ran a 4.66. The man can get down the field. He attacks the seam. He high points the football. He's a very good prospect, but in Dynasty, I'm not taking him until the third round. I don't have a first round or a second round grade on any tight end in this draft.
Yeah, that seems to be the consensus there, is that the tight ends definitely aren't as good as they were last year when you had Hawkinson and Fant and those kind of guys. But there's a couple guys you can get late if you need a tight end for sure. All right, let's move over to the 2-7 matchup. And the next matchup here is a guy that probably could have been a number one seed if not for the four guys that I had at number one already. J.K. Dobbins had to be a number two in this format. So J.K. Dobbins at the 2 seed going up against the number 7 seed of Michael Pittman Jr. John, we'll go to you first this time. Give me your thoughts on Mr. Pittman Jr., who lost this matchup 86% to 14%.
I like Michael Pittman Jr. Now, he's a late bloomer, but that USC depth chart, it's been very good while Michael Pittman was on that campus. We can start with Juju Smith-Schuster taking all those targets 3 years ago. Pittman worked his way up, and if you just study the numbers of the last 2 seasons, Pittman was very productive with over 2,000 yards receiving and nearly 20 touchdowns. Look, he's got the size. He's got the speed. I don't think he's a Mike Evans upside, but I think you're looking at a very productive player at the peak of his career with between 900 and 1,100 yards receiving. He does have the body and athletic ability of an ex-receiver. I think he might be better as a Z early in his career until he can master the nuances of the NFL.
Good stuff. All right, Ryan, give me your thoughts. I know you're a big fan of this guy. You mentioned him on the last podcast. What are your thoughts on Pittman Jr.?
Yeah, I'm pretty high on him. I actually have him as my wide receiver in 8 right now. I think he's going to be a great red zone threat right away. He's fantastic contested catches. He has good hands in general. He's good at bodying people, boxing out, using his size to his advantage. For his size, he runs pretty well. Nothing super, but for a guy that big, I think it's great because you don't need a ton, and he knows how to use it to his advantage. Once he gets, like he said, a little more refined, he can be a really dangerous weapon. And he has a lot of upside just because of that side-speed combination.
All right, good stuff. Let's move on to the other 2-7 matchup here. And here's a guy that's been kind of rising on draft boards. He hasn't quite moved into that quote-unquote top 5 guys yet. But I know he's Ryan's a big fan of this guy. Mr. Cam Akers as a number 2 seed, matching up against Van Jefferson. Cam Akers won this matchup 91% to 9%. Ryan, we'll go back to you since Cam Akers is your boy. Give me your thoughts on Van Jefferson and what you thought about this matchup.
I like Van Jefferson a lot. I mean, I feel like his hype kind of dissipated a little bit with not participating in the combine after he had that momentum building after the Senior Bowl. But he's a fantastic route runner. He has good hands. Unfortunately for him, he wasn't in an offense that got to showcase him a lot in Florida. But he always seemed to be open. He always got guys off him. They moved him around. He was able to beat press coverage. I like a lot of what he can do. I just want to see him get the opportunity. All
right. John, what are your thoughts on Van Jefferson?
So I have to admit that I'm not a Van Jefferson guy. I have him outside of my top 20 at wide receiver. I think he was very disappointing at the Senior Bowl. I wanted him to be good. He's the type of player where I wrote about him in college fantasy football. I drafted him very late. But every time I watch him perform, he just never came through. Now, I'm old enough to remember his father, Sean Jefferson of the San Diego Chargers. I actually drafted him as a deep sleeper back, I think, all the way in 1993 or 1994. And his dad was a deep home run threat. But, man, I just don't see it in Van Jefferson. I would not be surprised if he goes undrafted and he ends up on a team as a camp invite.
Oh wow. Not a fan of him. All right, I like that. A little bit of controversy there with the statement there that you're not a big fan. All right. Let's move to the next 2-7 matchup, and we got Mr. T. Higgins, who was just recently, I think, had his pro day. I know he didn't do anything at the combine. His matchup is against Donovan Peoples-Jones. John, we'll go back to you. This matchup was won, obviously, by T. Higgins, a lot closer than I expected it to be. Actually, 56% for T. Higgins, 44% for Peoples-Jones. What's your thought on Peoples-Jones, John?
I think he's one of the overlooked and undervalued prospects in this class. I have him in my top 12. But I understand if you're looking at the production profile, you're going to puke because he just did not get it done. But you have to put it in context, my friend. He had a Neanderthal throwing the football. He played in a Cro-Magnon era offense. I mean, it was just pathetic what he did at Michigan. Look at when he went to the combine and he had a 4.48 40 and his vertical jump and broad jump, they were off the charts. He led all receivers in that. He has burst, he has speed. He's an automatic special team player the first day of training camp. I'm looking for a grand slam in the 3rd or 4th round of my dynasty rookie drafts. I will take the risk with the Donovan Peoples-Jones there because the athletic ability is so off the charts. If everything hits with the right coaching staff, the right quarterback, and the right system, you could have a 1,000-yard receiver with 8 touchdowns in the NFL.
Good stuff. All right. I'm not sure this is his nickname or not, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to him right now. DPJ. Ryan, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on DPJ?
Oh, sorry. I switched my headset. No, I think where John is, I think he's somebody I've been slowly to come around on. The film was atrocious, and that's what I kind of watched first without digging into him. And then when you look, you see the athletic profiles there. He was the #1 high school recruit at wide receiver, so he's been a talented guy his whole career. And when you watch, it's ugly seeing him. It's not his fault. And if I can look past that for a running back, Cam Akers, it's something I have to be able to avoid judging on a receiver. But it can work so much worse when they can't get him the ball. I think the upside's there with the athletic profile. But, yeah, I mean,
what if he played at LSU this year and he got into that Joe Brady offense with the competent quarterback?
The ceiling's worth it in the 3rd round. Yeah. It's taking if you want a guy who you have the roster, you want to take a chance that could go huge, he's a home run for that.
All right, good stuff, guys. Good stuff. That was probably our closest first-round matchup there with the 56 to 44%. Moving to the last 2-7 matchup, we have Mr. Henry Ruggs, of course, blew up the combine there, kind of rose a little bit on some draft boards. And he went up against Michael Warren, actually won his matchup 91% to 9% coming off that combine. Ryan, we're going to go to you first on this one. What are your thoughts on Mr. Michael Warren?
I feel like I've cooled on him a little bit. I think he has very good use in the NFL. I think he's a 2-down banger. I think you're not going to see too much out of him, but he's going to have use. He's going to get goal line carries. He might end up being one of the most frustrating players in the world because he's on a vulture year, normal running backs, touches in the red zone. There's not a ton of upside. He was okay as a receiver. I know you're the AAC guy with this, so you might have a little more insight than me. I liked what I saw. I liked the flashes. But he's a 2-down guy. He's a rotational person in my eyes.
All right. John, what do you think?
So I want him to be good. I saw him live against UConn, and my buddy who I went to the game with actually was playing me in college fantasy football, and he had Michael Warren. And Michael Warren, I believe he scored 3 touchdowns against us. Look, I do. I want him to be good. I'm rooting for the young man. I just don't see it at the NFL level. I think at best he is the 3rd running back on a depth chart. He might be an emergency starter, but I just don't see that special athletic ability, that wow. And I watched a lot of Michael Warren because I watch a lot of American Athletic Conference football. I think he's a 6th-round pick, and it would not surprise me if he's an undrafted free agent in the NFL draft.
Wow. Okay. All right. Good stuff. That's all for the 2-7 matchups. Let's move into the 3-6 matchups here. And the first one in the Jonathan Taylor division is Jalen Reagor going up against Antonio Gandy Golden. Reagor wins this matchup 82% to 18%. Ryan, what are your thoughts on Gandy Golden?
I mean, I like Gandy Golden a lot. He's another one of those size speed freaks at 6'6" and ran very, very well. I'm sorry, 6'4", not 6'6". I don't know where my brain is on that. He ran very, very well. And anytime he's on tape, he popped. He made great catches. He was strong. I like the upside, but I'm still a little hesitant with him. I feel like he's a possibility of falling into that Hakeem Butler trap that got a lot of people last year. And that's what I'm a little bit worried about, but I still like the upside. I feel comfortable with him late second, early third round for Dynasty.
All right. And John, what are your thoughts?
Interesting. If you had done this show in December, I had Antonio Gandy Golden in my top 12. But throughout this draft process, and this is what it is for, he just continually slides down the board. I like the film, but people remember he played at Liberty, and he was an independent program. He wasn't very often matched up against elite cornerbacks, and he won with size and intimidation all the time. But then he does the 40-yard dash, 4.6, 3-cone, 7.33, 20-yard shuttle, 4.55. I'm rooting for the kid. I want the kid to succeed. I hope he gets a chance in the NFL. But I have a 5th/6th round grade on him. He's really fallen down my chart. I think I have him at number 18 right now at wide receiver.
Yeah, I don't do a ton of film watching, but when I do my profiles on goingfor2.com, he's one of the ones that I did a profile on, and I watched some tape on him. And it seemed like the quarterback would see him lined up one-on-one with the smaller cornerback, and he would just throw it up there. It was just like, go up and get it, Gandy, because you're bigger than everybody else on the field right now. And that's basically how his whole game was. And that's just not going to fly. It's just not going to fly in the NFL. You can do it occasionally, but it's not going to be something you can do consistently in the NFL because those guys are a lot more physical and bigger, obviously. So he will have a tough transition to the NFL, I think, right early on.
Yeah.
All right, moving into the next 3-6 matchup, we got Mr. Justin Jefferson going up against the Combine hero, a guy that I didn't even know his name was after the Combine, Mr. Chase Claypool. Justin Jefferson wins this matchup 88% to 12%. John, I'm curious about your thoughts here on Claypool. I want to hear what you got to say about this guy because I didn't know his name until the Combine.
Well, he won me a college fantasy football championship in a keeper league because I had him and Ian Book of Notre Dame, and those two just got smoking hot the last 8 weeks of the season. Now, if I was his agent, I would give this young man one bit of advice: play tight end. You have tight end written all over you. You're athletic, you're big, you're strong, but you know what, young man? You cannot separate. He did not separate on film at Notre Dame. He did not separate at the Senior Bowl. I am not overly impressed. He wins contested passes. He beats people physically. He would be an awesome move tight end. Someone maybe gain 10 pounds if that's feasible on his frame. Let him grow into that body. Let him beat linebackers and safeties. But if you put this young man consistently at the Z or the X, he's not getting open off the line of scrimmage. People like Richard Sherman, they're going to press him, and he's not going to get open. I like him. His numbers were phenomenal at the Combine, but I see him as a tight end, my friends.
So on that note, real quick, John, we had Ryan McDowell on last week, and he said if he does move to the tight end position, that he can be the tight end 1 in this draft. Do you agree?
So I would not put him. I would probably put him above Harrison Bryant at number 4, only because of the lack of experience, and he's going to have to learn the position. I think you'd have to be patient for him to pop in his 3rd year in the NFL.
All right, fair enough. Ryan, what are your thoughts on Chase Claypool?
Yeah, we touched on last week. Sorry. We touched on last week and how you said today, if he's a wide receiver, I want no part of him. That tight end designation changes everything. I think he is a matchup nightmare coming off slot like that against the linebackers. A lot of what John said. he tested almost identical to Evan Ingram, even down to like within 4 pounds of him. A lot of it's similar, and he could have that kind of impact. And you mentioned about having some patience with him. We have to have patience with 99% of tight ends anyway.
Good point.
You're going to get people are probably going to draft him high, and chances are they're just going to cut him, and you're going to get him free agency anyways. But I have no problem dropping third on him if he has that tight end designation.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, let's move over to another 3-6 matchup here. We have Mr. Clyde Edwards-Helaire matched up against A.J. Dillon. Edwards-Helaire wins this matchup 80-20, 80% to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Ryan, we'll go back to you since your dog's being quiet for a few seconds here and see if you can get in some talk about Mr. A.J. Dillon.
A.J. Dillon was a shocker for me at the Combine. I like the production, but I didn't think he was that athletic when I watched him. And it was kind of changed things for me a little bit, but I still view him as a 2-down back. I don't think he has barely any receiving upside. He caught, I think, 18 or 21 passes in his college career. And compared to
21, my friend.
Okay, 18, I said 18 or 21. Not much.
No, you got it.
I got the upside. And that's not enough for me to feel comfortable with him as a 3-down back to the next level. Receiving something that, obviously, just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean they can't do it. But I'm still going to have some caution on that. He needs the right offense, I think, to be successful. So he's going to be a completely landing spot dependent guy on how I view him.
All right. You agree, John?
Yeah, so I had a dream after the Combine that A.J. Dillon landed in Pittsburgh. I just think he is the ultimate AFC North running back. Man, put him with Mike Tomlin. Put him with that Steeler offensive line, that commitment to the run. Look, I loved his production profile at Boston College, but I only had him as my 8th ranked running back pre-Combine. When he ran a 4.53 with a 7.19, I got a little excited. I had to admit it, because it was part of the blocking scheme, how they run their system at Boston College. So often, and I love tape, I love watching football, but systems matter, and sometimes on film, a guy could look slower and smaller, and that's why we need the Combine. What I saw was a man who's 6'0", 247. He's got the power and the speed. I agree with Ryan. 2-down back. But you know what? Derrick Henry's one hell of a 2-down back. And I won 3 fantasy football leagues with him this year, and I got him in a dynasty league, and I just love Derrick Henry. I have him as my 6th ranked back. I love A.J. Dillon.
All right, good stuff. All right, let's move to the last 3-6 matchup here, and we got Mr. Laviska Shenault going up against Anthony McFarland. Shenault wins this matchup 76% to 24%. John, we'll go right back to you on this one. Give me your thoughts on Anthony McFarland.
I like Anthony McFarland. I think the hype is a little bit too much. I mean, I look at the size, and let me get this. I think he's, 5'10", 203 pounds. He's not, the profile of the size and the production, I'm not infatuated with. Let me see. I just want to make 5'8", 208. Look, he's a jitterbug. And he was one of my sleepers in college fantasy football this year. And if you want to watch a great game of a running back, watch him against Ohio State 2 years ago. He was simply spectacular. Against the Buckeyes, he had 298 yards rushing.
Wow.
And he had 2 touchdowns over 70 yards.
Whew.
So the upside is unbelievable there. But I say to himself, injuries, redshirt season, there's some question marks. I have him at number 11 right now. In the right system, I think he's a little bit in that Duke Johnson bucket. I like him, but I don't think he can ever be your number 1 starter in fantasy football.
All right, good stuff. Ryan, what you got from Mr. McFarland?
I love McFarland. He's actually my RB6 right now.
Wow.
Wow.
I have some of the concerns you had. My biggest concern, I'll just start with that, when I watched him, was he runs very, very hard for that size. Like, he's not afraid of contact, which to an extent is a good thing, but we've seen this a lot with Devonta Freeman, who runs really hard for his size now. He gets beat up because of it. And I'm afraid of that with McFarland. I think if he's a 12 to 15 touch guy in the NFL, he has the explosive ability to give you a ton of fantasy value. I think he adds a nice bit in the receiving game. He can run in between tackles to keep teams honest. And I think that has a ton of upside for him. And I love the explosiveness and just kind of how he is a complete back. I just want to see him not be overworked because I think a long-term wear and tear could be bad.
All right, so he's one of those guys that can do more with less, right? You don't want him to see him get this big workload.
Yeah, I normally don't want to see a guy in a rotation, but I want to see him in a rotation.
All right, fair enough. All right, that's it for the 3-6 matchups. Let's move to the 4-5, where we had a couple really tight matchups and a few upsets, if you can consider a 4-5 matchup an upset. So we'll go to the first division here, the Jonathan Taylor division. And I got Eno Benjamin as the 4 seed, matched up against Brian Edwards as the 5 seed. The 5 seed wins this matchup actually pretty handily. 37% for Eno Benjamin, 63% for Brian Edwards. John, we'll go to you first on on Eno Benjamin. What are your thoughts on Eno?
I like Eno, but again, I think he's in that Duke Johnson, James White pass catching bucket. Look, he had 82 career receptions. Now, it's kind of ironic because he's not a natural great pass catcher. When you like, James White is just beautiful catching the ball. You know, he can turn, spin, identify tacklers, and gain yards so quickly. But Eno's efficient. You know, he's a good pass catcher. 5'9", 207 pounds. It was weird. He was much lighter at the Senior Bowl. Then he gained weight again for the Combine. Look, he was spectacular in 2018, named All-American 13. This is a young man from Arizona State, but he had over 1,600 yards rushing for the Sun Devils. I really like him. The athletic profile is there. 4.57 in the 40, 6.97 in the 20, 4.25 in the 20-yard shuttle. I like it. Excellent vision, quick feet, rapidly changes direction. But I just don't see him ever being able to handle 200 carries. Less could be more with him. Get him 165 touches, maybe 125 carries, 40 receptions. I like him, my number 8 running back.
All right, good stuff, good stuff. All right, let's move into the other 4-5 matchup. And this one is the number 4 seed was Zach Moss. The 5 seed was Tyler Johnson. When I first posted this one, Johnson jumped out to a big lead. I was like, uh-oh, Zach Moss is going to lose this matchup. But he made quite a bit of a comeback. Zach Moss wins this matchup 64% to 36%. Ryan, we'll go to you on this one real quick. What do you think of Tyler Johnson here, the loser in this matchup?
Tyler Johnson, for me, I know a lot of people have been very high on him. He's been kind of controversial. He didn't really do anything in Combine. Kind of scared me a little bit because he's kind of skipped a lot of stuff. But, I mean, he could be a really good big slot receiver in the NFL. I think he knows how to use his body, has good hands. It was really hard to see the way he was overshadowed in college. But with John, please, my brain just stopped. What's the other receiver's name there? His teammate?
Oh, Rashad Bateman.
Yeah, Rashad Bateman just kind of...
Woo!
Yeah,
he pop, baby!
He literally ruined Tyler Johnson. I couldn't take my eyes off him when I was watching. But no, he could be a very good receiver. I think he's a great complementary piece in the NFL. I think he could be a solid floor guy for fantasy. But he's not going to be a guy who's going to be in my top 10.
All right. And I realize, Ryan, I didn't give you a chance to talk about Eno Benjamin at all.
Okay.
Why
I didn't even follow it, man.
Was
You
that
hit everything? I said John hit everything on him. I agree with everything on that.
all right? Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, let's move into the other matchup here. Oh no, I'm sorry, we haven't got your thoughts yet, John. Have we on Tyler Johnson? Let's get your thoughts on Johnson.
I love the production, and I love rooting for kids like this, young men like this. I love watching them in college fantasy football. But, you know, the production profile's there. I just don't think the athletic ability's there. Until I see a 40 and, you know, a 3-cone shuttle and a 20-yard shuttle, 3-cone drill and 20-yard shuttle, I have concerns about it, and I actually have a friend who's from the University of Minnesota, and he kind of whispered to me that there's rumors that he might run a 4.74 in the 40. So I've been very concerned. I hope I wish him the best. I hope he runs a 4.65. I mean, give him a chance in the NFL.
All right, cool. Good stuff. Real quick, guys, before we move on, we did have a question on YouTube that I want to get answered about Eno Benjamin from Kyle Senra on YouTube. He wants to know, he said he saw some decent contact balance with Benjamin. Do you agree on that, John?
Yeah, he does, because I go back. Arizona State doesn't have a dominant offensive line, my friends. There was a lot of time Eno had to make some yardage on his own, and when you see him popping and banging and getting tacklers off him, he does have good contact balance, and he remains spatially aware of where he is on the field and where the tacklers are.
All right, good stuff. All right, let's move into the Jerry Jeudy division, and the 4-5 matchup in this one was also a mini upset here. We had the number 4 seed KJ Hamler matched up against the 5 seed Brandon Ayuk. Actually, Brandon Ayuk wins this matchup 54% to 46%. So, Ryan, give me your thoughts on Mr. KJ Hamler.
I like KJ Hamler. He's just shy of my top 10. I think he is a electric player with the ball in his hands. He's an absolute burner. I think he's creative when he's running the ball on those short passes. He struggles with press coverage. He's going to be a slot guy in the NFL. He was a little bit small, even though I was kind of impressed with his bench, which normally doesn't matter. But when you're a smaller receiver like that, it's nice to see. But I think he's a guy. He's gonna be a good slot guy, and I think he can be a floor play for you in fantasy with a little bit of upside because of his deep threat ability and his ability to run after the catch.
All right, John, what do you think of Mr. Hamler?
So I'm a little lower on him than most. I have him outside of my top 12. Look, I like the tape at Penn State, but he only did it for one season. He's a redshirt sophomore. At the end of the day, he's 5'9", 178 pounds. I have actually not seen an official 40-yard dash time on him, 3-cone drill, 20-yard shuttle. He looks like a classic slot receiver. Is he Cole Beasley? Or is he Santana Moss at the NFL level? I'm going back in time, folks. I have my questions on him. I don't think he ever has the upside of 1,200 yards and, 80 receptions. I think he's going to settle in 50 catches, 600 yards, and 4 or 5 touchdowns.
All right, good stuff. All right, let's do the last 4-5 matchup here, and then we will move to a commercial break before we move into round 2. So the 4-5 matchup in the CeeDee Lamb division, the 4 seed was Denzel Mims, who may have been the biggest winner at the Combine, at least from what I've heard. And then the 5 seed was Keyshawn Vaughn. Denzel Mims wins this matchup 76% to 24%. John, we'll go back to you on this one. Give me your thoughts on Keyshawn Vaughn.
I like Keyshawn Vaughn a lot. I definitely don't hear a lot about him. But, man, you're talking about a young man that came from Vanderbilt playing SEC-level competition. He was phenomenal in 2018. But let's put it in context. He suffered from Vanderbilt's pathetic offense. They had no quarterback play. Their offensive line was far below average, and I'm being kind here. He had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He ran a 4.51 in the 40-yard dash, 3,296 career rushing yards, 66%. I have him as my number 7 running back. I like him a lot.
All right, Ryan, we'll go over you. You got a lot of background noise on one of your screens here. I don't know who it is, but...
Hold on, let me try it. Is that better?
Yeah, I don't hear anything now. Should be good now. All right, give me your thoughts on Mr. Keyshawn Vaughn.
Yeah, I have him actually as my RB7 as well. I like Vaughn. I think he moves well for a guy his size. I think he has that prototypical build. I think he's a decent enough receiver where he can stay on the field all 3 downs. I don't know if he's going to be a star in the league or anything like that, but he can be a solid guy. He can plug and play. he could be your RB2 at the next level in the right situation. At worst, he could be a guy you can start to flex every single week. I like a lot of what you see in him. And I think he's a guy who'll be good fantasy asset. I have no problem with him early second.
All right, good stuff. That wraps up round 1. Quick commercial break here, guys, and when we come back, we'll tackle round 2 and go straight on through down to the championship matchup. So just hold tight.
In the unpredictable world of fantasy sports, when all hope seems lost and chaos and confusion rule, one hero will rise. And change everything. Goingfor2.com. Because no one remembers the extra point.
All right, guys, welcome back. I'm here with Ryan and John, and we are doing our bracket of 32, and we are whittling our way down to the number 1 seed. We are at the Sweet 16 currently, and we're going to stick to the divisions this time. Instead of going 1-8, 2-7, and so on and so forth, we'll just stick to one division at a time. So let's go to the Jonathan Taylor division. In the second round, we've got Jonathan Taylor matched up with Mr. Brian Edwards. Taylor wins this matchup 94% to 6%, so not much of a matchup there. Ryan, give me your thoughts on Mr. Brian Edwards.
I love Brian Edwards. He's an absolute beast. He's produced his whole college career. He's a big, strong receiver. He's physical. He blocks. He bodies guys over the middle. He's great in the red zone. He's good body control. He ran well for his size. I think he could be a top-tier wide receiver, too, to complement somebody in the NFL with upside to be a little bit more even. Maybe more of that wide receiver 1B type thing. I'm a big fan of his game. I think he has a ton of upside, and I'm excited to see where he goes.
All right. John, you agree on Mr. Brian Edwards?
I agree with Ryan wholeheartedly. I really like this young man as a prospect, 6'3", 215 pounds. The production profile is good, but you have to put it into perspective. He did play with Deebo Samuel at South Carolina, and anyone who watches the Gamecocks or college football, they've not had very good quarterback play. I think they went through 3 quarterbacks this season, and they actually ended up playing like a freshman late in the year.
Wow.
So for 234 career receptions, averaging 13 yards per catch, I really like it. Now, I hope he's 100% healthy. We could not see him at the combine because of the broken foot. He announced that on Twitter, which, my heart skipped a beat when I saw his announcement on Twitter, and he wasn't going to participate. But he's still a great prospect. Let's just hope that foot heals 100%.
All right, good stuff. Let's stay in the Jonathan Taylor division and go with the 3-2 matchup here. We got the number 3 seed, Mr. Jalen Reagor, matched up against the 2 seed, J.K. Dobbins. Dobbins wins this matchup 75 to 25. Ryan, give me your thoughts on Mr. Reagor.
Reagor's probably the best player we've seen eliminated so far out of here. His combine was vastly overblown. I think he looked great. He was explosive. I mean, he had a 42-inch vertical and a 138-inch broad jump, but because he ran a slow 4.47, people were freaking out about it. It doesn't change anything. He played with one of the worst quarterbacks I've watched in any film. He was reached for any ball he could get. He made phenomenal catches. He's electric with the ball in his hands. He can run a variety of routes. I think he could be a guy who would be a nice number 1 receiver for a team. And he's going to be right in that after the top big 6 guys. He's going to be right in that conversation with me, depending on his landing spot.
All right, good stuff. John, you agree on Reagor?
I absolutely agree with Ryan. I mean, the Horned Frogs playmaker is what I call expectations. everyone was tweeting out that he was going to run a 4.28, maybe a 4.31. And when the young man puts out a 4.47, Twitter's hair went on fire. I mean, come on, man. The kid can play in the NFL. 5'11", 206 pounds, a quick twitch athlete. He's got a great role ahead. Immediate starter on special teams. Man, there is a punt return. If you had not watched the film, he looks like Pac-Man, man. He is just bouncing off of players. He's eating players up. I believe it's a 70-yard return. He is a very good prospect. I agree with Ryan wholeheartedly.
All right, good stuff. I'm still getting some background noise. I'm not sure. It sounds like a TV or someone talking in the background. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but
I swear to God, I got nothing back here. Nothing.
it's all
good. I can't shut doors in my house because my dog will go absolutely bonkers, and he can't open doors. So if it's locked, he will just bang at the doorknob.
It's all good.
Can't see him.
It's all good,
so
man.
I'm trying to just keep the crack just enough for sound doesn't go in. I apologize to anybody listening.
It's all good, man. It's all good. It's the trouble of live going live. It's the problems that we got to run into. It's all good, man. That happens.
He's a monster. It's okay.
All right, let's move into the DeAndre Swift division now, and we'll stick with the number 1 seed, DeAndre Swift, matched up against the number 4 seed, Zach Moss. Swift takes this one pretty handily, 89% to 11%. John, we'll go to you first. Give us your thoughts on Zach Moss. I've heard some mixed reviews on this guy.
Well, first, I wonder what the people were drinking who voted for Zach Moss in this matchup. I mean, you really get off the bourbon, have some orange juice or something, man. Now, I've enjoyed watching Zach Moss at Utah as much as anyone possible. I stay up way too late on the East Coast. My wife is telling me to roll over and go to bed on a Saturday night at 12:30. But, man, he is not even in the same conversation athletically and as a prospect as DeAndre Swift. Look, I'm rooting for the young man. The 40-yard time was a major disappointment, and I've fallen for this a couple times in the last couple years, the last one being Samaje Perine. Zach Moss is reminding me more and more of Samaje Perine every day. And I was guilty of being on the Perine train. I jumped off the Moss Express. So I'm sorry, man. Get some orange juice. Put the bourbon down.
All right, Ryan, what are your thoughts on Moss? I know you weren't a big fan of him when I put him as one of my higher-ranked running backs before I dropped him back down.
No, I wasn't at all. I know he shows the ability to make people miss, and he graded out really good at PFF like that. But there's just even when you watch him, there's just that little bit missing. It's that extra gear. It's that little bit extra. It separates these great running backs we see above him to doing that. And he could be a trap player, like John said. I think he's going to get overdrafted by a lot of people. He's going to hit that late first round in Dynasty drafts. And I think it's a little bit too high. I get where people do it, but I don't think I'm going to fall for that this year.
Ding dong. Do you remember David Cobb? Ding dong, David Cobb out of Minnesota.
Yep.
I think he's in the David Cobb, Samaje Perine bucket. I'm out unless I got a fantastic deal in the third round or something.
I have him up on Mock Draftable. Some of the guys who he tested very similar to, who you may remember, Terrence West, Travis Henry, and Kadeem Carey.
Not good comparisons for sure.
not very good bucket.
Those were the best guys listed.
Wow.
Terrence West was the top performing guy in the NFL.
I think I was a victim of Scott Barrett going on to Ryan McDowell's show and just hyping up Zach Moss, and I put him high in my rankings based solely on that. I've since come down on him quite a bit, just listening to other guys talk about him. So Zach Moss for me is definitely dropped down in my running back rankings. All right, let's move to the other matchup in the Swift division, and that's this one surprised me a little bit. This one was probably our closest matchup in the entire tournament. At one point, I think we had like 245 or 46 votes, and it was literally like 50-50 at one point. This one ended up with number 3 seed Justin Jefferson against the number 2 seed Cam Akers. Justin Jefferson takes this matchup with a 52% to 48%. Ryan, we'll go to you since your boy Akers got eliminated here. What do you think about him getting eliminated by Justin Jefferson?
So, I had mixed feelings because I'm a huge fan of both of them. Justin Jefferson is my wide receiver 3. We'll talk more about him a little bit. But I love Cam Akers. I think he is a complete back. He does everything. If you can see in the back, I'm a huge Florida State fan, so I've watched him since his freshman year. I remember when he first came on, it just blew up. I broke Dalvin Cook's freshman rushing record. He worked behind the 120th ranked line in all of college football. The line created 5 yards of production for him all year. Everything he did was making guys miss in the backfield, doing it himself. He can break big plays. He runs hard through the tackles. He's creative. He knows how to make guys miss. I think he's right in there with that tier of the top guys, if not, or he's maybe just a baby step behind them, if not in that tier.
All right, John, let me get your opinions on it as far as this matchup. Do you agree that Jefferson should take this matchup, or would you have put Akers over Jefferson?
So it's funny. I would have put Akers over Jefferson because I believe in the dynasty leagues. I'm still maybe old school. I'm a running back guy. Even after the 2014 year season, when everyone was saying get wide receiver dynasty assets, I've been drafting running backs. So I would have definitely taken Akers over Jefferson because I believe there are more productive wide receivers in this class in a dynasty draft. So I would dip into the wide receiver pool later on.
Good point.
So I like Cam Akers a lot, man. Hey, he was the number 1 running back coming out of the country in high school. I drafted the young man in my college fantasy football dynasty league. I watched him play a ton. Unfortunately, he's been a little disappointing and he's missed some games. But man, the athletic ability, when you're talking about 5'10", 217 pounds, 4.47 in the 40, but 4.42 in the 20. And I'm going to be kind. The Florida State Seminoles offensive line sucked. You've got to put it into context. If this young man gets an efficient run scheme and they block up for him, he could be special.
All right, that's a good analogy there. I've heard actually, again, I mentioned this many times on the show. I'm not a big college football fan, but not only was that Florida State line bad for this year, they were one of the worst all time.
They were worse last year. They were bad back to back.
Wow.
And the quarterback play has been really bad too. Just
real bad.
Blackman's not bad.
All right, good stuff, guys. Good stuff. All right, let's move up to the Jerry Jeudy division now. The 1-5 matchup here. We got Jerry Jeudy as the 1 seed, Brandon Ayuk as the 5 seed. Jeudy takes this matchup obviously with a 92-8%. We're gonna go to you, John, for this first one here. Give me your thoughts on Brandon Ayuk.
I like Brandon Ayuk. I mean, it was a tough matchup. There was no way he was going to beat Jerry Jeudy. I wrote about Ayuk week 1 in my college fantasy football waiver wire gemstones column. He popped immediately. I believe Arizona State was playing on a Thursday night. He had a big touchdown. Now, I know people were scared because they had a freshman quarterback at Arizona State. But, guys, you got to remember, the Pac-12 is defensively challenged. So I'll always take a wide receiver who's 6'0", 205 pounds. He was going into that tasty X position for the Sun Devils, replacing N'Keal Harry. I like this young man. Look, at last year, he completely popped. First team All Pac-12, AP third team All-American. He's a quick twitch athlete who can beat you vertically. Now, I don't think he steps into the NFL day 1 and he's a star, but he can help you on special teams immediately, and he has a long-term potential. I like Ayuk. He's my number 8 prospect at wide receiver.
All right, good stuff. In the effort of time, because we are up against the clock here, we're just going to go with one of you. We'll alternate each one of you for a matchup. So, Ryan, we're going to go to you for this next matchup. It's a 3-2 matchup in the Jeudy division, and it was actually our closest matchup with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and T. Higgins. Clyde Edwards takes the matchup 51% to 49%. So give me your thoughts on T. Higgins, Ryan.
I'm going to say T. Higgins is lucky this poll was done before his pro day after jumping and being a little bit slow. I like T. Higgins. He's in that group right after the top 2 receivers, I think. Depending on landing spot, there's about 4 guys who you can rank any order you want where they go. I think he is a top tier, like a big man wide receiver. He's strong with the ball. He runs after the catch well. He uses his body, uses his strength the way he should. He has great body control. He does a lot of things. I've talked about some of the other big receivers with Edwards and Pittman, but he just does it all a little bit better. I think he's a guy who could be a team's number 1 receiver, and he could have a ceiling like what we're seeing out of Cortland Sutton right now.
All right, good stuff. Ryan, we're going to stay with you on this next one here. We're going to go move to the CeeDee Lamb division and go with the 1-4 matchup there. It's CeeDee Lamb versus Denzel Mims. CeeDee Lamb obviously takes this one in a landslide, 92% to 8%. So give me your thoughts on Mr. Denzel Mims.
I like Denzel Mims. I knew he was going to run well, but I didn't expect anything we saw. He's so smooth when he runs. I think it's kind of deceptive. I think he could be a trap guy. I think some people are getting a little ahead of himself. I would love if we could squeeze John's opinion on him, man, because I'm very curious. But I think he doesn't have that super explosiveness that's going to put him in that, like, be a team's top number 1 wide receiver. I think that's a big difference with him and some of those other guys. I think he'll be a great number 2 receiver at the next level, but I'm still a little bit hesitant because there's not that abruptness to his play style that you see in some guys.
All right. Yeah, it's funny that y'all said, about the time and getting John's opinion in there. 2 guys, one on Facebook and one on YouTube, said they have all the time in the world because they're not doing anything with this coronavirus thing going on right now. So,
hey, I can sit all night. I'm fine. I got no work. My school's canceled, so I'm ready to rock and roll, gentlemen.
All right. So let's go ahead and just get your thoughts on Denzel Mims real quick, John, and then we'll move on to the next matchup, and I'll mention that after you mention your Denzel Mims thoughts.
Hey, my fastest riser, there's no question in this whole process. This is what the process is for. Mims entered at late December. He was in my top 10. Always a little bit worried of Big 12 wide receivers, especially a physical wide receiver in the Big 12, because they tend to beat people up in that conference. They just don't have the defensive backs who can hold up against them. But, man, when he goes to combine and he pops, man, that athletic ability, that burst with that size, he's in my top 5 right now at wide receiver. I think he's going to be taken in the first round. I love him now.
Nice.
I have him at 7. I feel like I was too negative in my comments about him. But I still, he's not, I'm not as high, but he's just right outside of that group for me.
All right, good stuff. All right, John, now we'll go to you for the 3-2 matchup here. Laviscus Chenault going up against Mr. Henry Ruggs. Ruggs takes this matchup. Of course, this was done shortly after the Combine when he blew it up. He wins this matchup 69% to 31%. So give me your thoughts on Chenault.
I like Chenault, but let's be clear first. He is not Cordell Patterson. I saw people early in the draft process pop or type that into Twitter, and I'm like, no, you have not watched enough film. While I could see there's some loose analogy there, but it is not fair. He's a much better receiver than Cordell Patterson. Now, I could also say Cordell Patterson was a better athlete when you look at what he did. So I don't like that I don't like that analogy. I do like this young man. However, there are really big concerns and red flags that are starting to bother me. Man, he has had a lot of injuries. They're starting to pile up. You're looking at the young man who's had turf toe injury. He had left shoulder labrum injury. He was diagnosed with an inflamed pubic bone. I don't even know where my pubic bone is. And I took biology over 35 years ago. And then he had to repair a core muscle injury. My wife still wants me to have a stronger core muscle. What the hell? The man is falling apart. And he's 21 years of age. I have him at number 9. But there's a lot of risk that I'm not taking on in a Dynasty League.
That seriously needs to go on the intro there. I don't even know where my pubic bone is. I like it. All right, so that wraps up that round there. Let's move into the next round, and we'll go back to the Jonathan Taylor division. And Taylor, as the 1 seed, of course, moved on and played the number 2 seed. No surprises here. It's Jonathan Taylor versus J.K. Dobbins. Taylor takes this matchup 72-28. So, Ryan, give me your thoughts on Dobbins.
Man, this draft process has not been kind to him, huh? I like J.K. Dobbins a lot. He's sitting in my running back 4. I think he's an absolutely explosive athlete. He's a big play waiting to happen. I really liked how going from his sophomore to his junior year, he kind of morphed his game from just that guy who you give a few carries a game, hopefully breaks one, to show he could run between the tackles. He can move the chains for you. He shows he can be a good receiver. I love his whole game. I think he could be a every down back in the league. I think he's a top 5 dynasty pick this year. I love everything about his game. It's unfortunate he had to face Jonathan Taylor, I guess.
So let me ask you this, Ryan, because you said he's the number 4 running back. Does that mean you move Cam Akers ahead of him?
Oh, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I didn't have a list. Yeah, he's still my 3.
He's your 3. Okay, I was like 4. Okay, I was like trying to think, who does he have ahead of him? It's got to be Cam Akers.
No, I think I've had too many conversations, specifically with a certain person I'm going for 2, who's been trying to talk me into having Cam Akers as my number 3.
He had you confused.
I have J.K. Dobbins a little bit over him, but I'm seeing a lot of places where he's falling and a lot of people who are taking them flipped.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen where Cam Akers has kind of pushed him a little bit. It's definitely closing the gap for sure. John, let's go ahead and get your thoughts on Dobbins as well. And just real quick before you give me your thoughts, Kyle Senra on YouTube says your students must love having you as their teacher because all your energy you've got.
Oh, it's very actually. I'm not trying to brag, but they do like coming to my classroom. And the best thing about high school kids, they tell you exactly how they feel. So, like, you know when you're giving a good lesson and a good unit, they feel the passion. You see the eyes open, and they let you know that you're doing well. So thank you.
Good stuff. Now, what's your thoughts on Dobbins?
Oh, man, I got tickets. Please join me. He's my number 2 running back. I am not giving up this train. Now, I reluctantly had to move John Taylor ahead of him. Man, that was the hardest thing I had to do. I wanted Dobbins number 1. But when John Taylor does what John Taylor did, I have to move Dobbins down. But, man, I am not giving up. He is my number 2. This young man is a home run waiting to happen. 5'9", 209 pounds. I mean, I've seen all the great Ohio State running backs of the last 30 years. Ezekiel Elliott. I go all the way back to Eddie George. This is a loaded program. J.K. Dobbins is special. I love him, man. If he falls below the 6th pick in a dynasty draft, you are going to be so happy. I love him. I'm not giving up on this young man. The tape is amazing, and I understand that athletic ability matters. But, man, I still believe at the pro day he's going to hit a home run. I love J.K. Dobbins.
All right, good stuff. You make me want to raise him up in my rankings a little bit. I think I have him right now as RB3. But yeah, I like Dobbins as well. I want to see more, see him do something at the combine, which he didn't do. So his pro day will definitely be must-watch TV for me.
My friends, watch the game against Michigan and watch the playoff game, the first half against Clemson. Yum, yum, yum. Oh, it's special.
Good stuff. All right, let's move into the Swift division. We have the number 1 seed, of course, DeAndre Swift. Matched up against Justin Jefferson. Swift wins this matchup 71% to 29%. Ryan, we'll go to you. Give me your thoughts on Justin Jefferson.
I love Justin Jefferson. I said he's my wide receiver 3 right now. I think he had the quietest 1,500 yards I've ever seen a college player have, and nobody ever talks about it. I think he's going to be – I'm leaning towards the slot because of the way he's played, but I think he can be an absolute PPR monster. He catches anything in his area. His hands are absolutely outstanding. He's a good route runner. his speed he showed at the combine, I did not expect, and it just cemented him there. I was close between him, Higgins, and Rager, and that locked him at that 3 spot. 'Cause I love his overall game, and the fact that he can run too, I think it's phenomenal. Wow. I love the kid. I think he's going to be an absolute steal, especially because of the fact he's not going in that high first range in that first half of the first round. I think he'll slide a little bit and be a steal for somebody.
All right. What are your thoughts, John?
Oh, I love Jefferson. You can go back all the way to last summer, and on my college fantasy football pod, I'll give a cheap plug for it. And I have 2 great teammates there, so it's just not me. But all summer, I kept talking about the LSU Tigers. Man, I had seen the spring game. I heard about the new offense. Now, I'll even admit, I never thought they'd go 15-0 and that Joe Burrow would throw 60 touchdowns. I'd be lying to you if I told you that. But, man, I had gobbled up so many shares of Justin Jefferson. He was dirt cheap in college fantasy football last summer. I have loved watching this young man over the last 2 years. He led the team in receiving in 2018, but the offense was basically like Michigan. It was in the Cro-Magnon era, so they couldn't really do much. But finally, man, that Tigers let that talent at the wide receiver. I mean, how many years have we seen these incredible athletes be shackled by that incredibly boring offense? But this year, what did they do? They said, young men, fly, young men, fly. Joe Burrow threw the football all over. I love Justin Jefferson. Man, 6'1", 202 pounds. Go get him, everyone.
All right, great stuff there, John. I need to get you like a drink or something, man. You got so much energy over there.
I'm not even drinking. I just got water over here.
Good stuff. All right, let's move over to the Jerry Jeudy division, and the matchup there is, of course, Jerry Jeudy, the number 1 seed, go up against Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Jeudy wins this matchup 83-17. Ryan, we'll give John a little bit of a break, catch his breath a little bit. Give me your thoughts on Edwards-Helaire.
I love Edwards-Helaire. He's another. He's my running back 5. I think he's another guy who had a combine where he did what he was. He showed what he really was, but people expected more. His 4.6 40 wasn't bad because he is an explosive runner. He has that short area quickness. He has great burst. He's super creative. He knows how to make guys miss. He runs strong between the tackles. And he is an absolute star catching the ball in the backfield. He can be split out wide out. He kills linebackers and safeties. I love this game. I think he's a true 3-down runner. I think he, as my RB5, I think he's the cutoff where those star 3-down backs are and your every down guys in this draft.
All right, John, what are your thoughts on Edwards-Helaire?
I like Edwards-Helaire a lot. I now have Cam Akers ahead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Cam Akers in my book has bigger size-speed ratio, better size-speed and ratio. I like the LSU Tiger, 5'7", 207 pounds. What I like about him is he's much more physical than you would think. I mean, I watched way too much LSU football for someone who lives in the Northeast this year, and he really was one of the key components of that offense. I'm a little worried with the 4.61 40-yard dash time. That concerned me a little bit at the combine. I wonder if he's a system running back. I think he's going to be a little bit scheme dependent, but he is a 3-down back because he's an excellent pass catcher. So he has a tremendous role ahead in the NFL, at least coming out of the backfield. Not sure if he can handle, 18 carries a game, but I do like him. He's my number 5 running back.
All right, good stuff. We'll move into the CeeDee Lamb division, and we got the number 1 seed CeeDee Lamb matched up with Mr. Henry Ruggs. CeeDee Lamb wins this matchup at a 82-18. Obviously, Lamb is the number 1 seed there, so we kind of expected that. Ryan, we'll go to you. Give me your thoughts on Henry Ruggs, and do you think he'll be overdrafted with that 40 time that he put up?
Is it safe to talk about Henry Ruggs yet, since all he's caused recently on Twitter? No, I like Henry Ruggs, man. I think his speed and athleticism are absolutely phenomenal. But I think it confuses people is they're trying to view him as different than he is. What he is he's a big play threat. He's not going to be a 80, 90 catch guy. He can get 60, 70 catches, be close to that 1,000-yard mark, score some touchdowns. He scored a touchdown he scored 7 touchdowns on 40 receptions. He was scoring at unprecedented pace. He's a guy who makes big plays. He's got to be that complementary piece to open up an offense. He has huge value in real football, even probably more so than fantasy. But, man, he's a guy in fantasy you pair as a receiving core with a high-volume guy. He could be a guy who's going to win you weeks. He's going to be best ball gold on a side note. But I love Henry Ruggs. He's my wide receiver 5, I think. No, 6, sorry. Wide receiver 6, and his explosiveness is unbelievable. And I think people are just overthinking it now. He could be that Mike Wallace type guy who's just a big play threat.
All right, good stuff. What are your thoughts on Ruggs, John?
First, I'm mad at him because I had Jerry Jeudy in a dynasty league, and Ruggs scored way too many touchdowns that should have been scored by Jerry Jeudy. But I have a first-round grade on Ruggs. You can't ignore the 4.27, and I think he has a lot more value to an NFL franchise as a deep threat. The safeties are going to have to play deep, and if you do not cover him deep at 5'11", 188, Ruggs is kind of a bully. He's a strong player. He's not small like Deshaun Jackson. Now, he's not as dynamic, in my opinion, as Deshaun Jackson, but he can push people around. If you leave him one-on-one 45 yards down the field, he's going to bully the defensive back. Now, I think we need to look at him on a spectrum. At the low end is John Ross. At the high end is Deshaun Jackson. That means there's a wide range of outcomes, which is a concern for me in a dynasty league. But I do think an NFL franchise, especially a creative coordinator, is going to love Ruggs for how he changes the defense. You have to scheme differently. But I have a first-round grade. I like him a lot. I think he's one of those 6 in the first round.
All right, yeah, good stuff. Yeah, I've heard that a lot about him, that he's going to be a better NFL player than he is a fantasy player, just from the fact that, yeah, he changes the game with that speed, but he's not going to have those volume games. He might have that 3-catch, 120-yard and a touchdown type game, but it's not going to be the volume that you want in fantasy football. So yeah, I love.
Next week he'll go 3 for 12.
Yeah, exactly. 100% agree. All right, we are at the final 4 now, and all 4 number 1 seeds did advance. All right, so I basically divided them up. I knew the 4 1 seeds would probably advance, so I divided them up. Running back on the left side and receivers on the right side. So on the left side, we got Jonathan Taylor matched up with DeAndre Swift. And Taylor takes this matchup at a 67-33 clip. Ryan, give me your thoughts on Mr. Swift.
I was going to say, I was a little upset about these polls for the Final Four. I voted a loser on both sides. But I love DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift's still my running back 1. I know Jonathan Taylor was an absolute star at the Combine and has the most absurd production we've seen in a long, long time. But DeAndre Swift right now, he is so good and so versatile. I think he's one of the most scheme-diverse running backs in this year's draft. He's creative with the ball in his hand. He kills the cutback lanes. He has great vision. He's produced a ton of yardage off of limited carries because Georgia has a stable of 4 and 5-star recruits at running back where he doesn't have to carry the ball 30 times a game. So I think he has low mileage. He's a fantastic receiver. I think his quickness, looseness makes it so he can play in any single kind of offense. And I don't have to worry as much about the landing spot with him as I would with almost any other running back. I love Swift's game. He's my number 1 overall if I'm drafted today.
All right, good stuff. John, what are your thoughts on Mr. Swift?
I agree with Ryan. I like him a ton. Now, I have him as the number 3 running back. But, man, these are so tight. I've spent way too many hours thinking about these top 4 running backs. I mean, I watched so much film. So when I have him number 3, I don't think that's a knock on him. Now, I'm old enough to remember, man, I remember Herschel Walker from this program, and I'll never forget when he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated as a rookie. I believe it was 1980. I'm so old. I was a freshman in high school. And Mr. Bannon caught me reading the magazine in English class. And he took away my copy of Sports Illustrated. And I had to go see him after school and beg him to have my Sports Illustrated back. So I've been watching Georgia for years. DeAndre Swift is going to be a very good NFL player. I think one of the things that Ryan said that is most important, I think he's the best pass catcher in this draft class. What I like about him, you could move him into the slot and run him on a seam pattern 10 to 15 yards down the field, and he can catch it. He is so smooth in the transition. Once he gets the ball in the hands, he identifies tacklers, he understands space, and he explodes up the field. I really like DeAndre Swift.
All right. Yeah, I think I mentioned this on Twitter. If we had done this poll before the Combine, I think Swift wins this matchup. The fact that it was shortly after the Combine is the reason that Taylor got it, because everyone was hyped on him. The media loved him. So this matchup can go either way, I think. Moving over to the receiver side of things, we've got Jerry Jeudy as the 1 seed and CeeDee Lamb as the 1 seed. And this matchup was won by CeeDee Lamb, a bit of a surprise for me. He actually won it pretty handily at a 70 to 30% clip. So, John, we'll go back to you on your thoughts on Mr. Jerry Jeudy.
So I'm Team Jeudy. I mean, I'm still there. He's my number 1. It's super close. I mean, but I'm not looking at just the last season. I'm trying to look at these 2 young men over the last 2 seasons. They have just both been absolutely phenomenal. Jeudy was the Biletnikoff Award winner in 2018. He was not likely to replicate that last year when you consider the amazing amount of talent that Alabama had at the wide receiver position. We were just talking about Henry Ruggs, a few minutes ago. They might even have the number 1 wide receiver this year in Devonta Smith, everyone. So they're just absolutely loaded, but I love Jeudy. The Combine is a little concerned, so I've been losing sleep over this. I know I don't have any gray hair yet, but, man, I might have some after this draft. Man, I'm not ecstatic with the 4.45. The 4.53 in the 20-yard shuttle is a little concerning. But his body of work, his resume, I just can't discount that. I have him at number 1. He's uber start-stop ability. He sinks his hips. He gets in and out of breaks so quickly. He has lightning feet, and I think he's the best route runner in this class. I love Jerry Jeudy.
All right, good stuff. Again, I think if this is taken before the Combine, I think Jeudy wins. The fact that it was after the Combine, and I think CeeDee Lamb took it because of that Combine. So, all right, we are at the championship round, and we got Mr. Jonathan Taylor, the 1 seed on the running back side of things, and Mr. CeeDee Lamb on the receiver side of things. And the matchup here, Jonathan Taylor takes this matchup at a 67 to 33% clip. Ryan, we'll go to you. Give me your thoughts on Mr. CeeDee Lamb.
I mean, CeeDee Lamb is a complete receiver. He's an absolute bully when he has the ball in his hands. His run after catch is absolutely amazing. He knows how to go up and get it. He gets his he can get in and out of his breaks and create separation. Even in small spaces, he's able to make room for himself to make plays. He knows how to box out. He's a wide receiver 1 at the next level. I have Jerry Jeudy ahead of him too, but it's a slim as can be. It's a hair's distance. He's phenomenal. I'm a running back, early guy in Dynasty startups. That's why I'd have Taylor ahead of him. But I have no problem with this either way. But, man, he's such a good receiver.
All right, good stuff. What about you, John? What are your thoughts on Mr. Lamb?
I mean, I love Lamb too. Don't get me wrong, man. He has a lot of DeAndre Hopkins in his game. 6'2", 198. It would have been nice if he was like maybe 205, 206. I wish he had gotten over that 200-pound threshold. He looks very thin, but, man, he is a great, great NFL player. 173 career receptions, 19 yards per catch. I think people don't know how prolific he was with the ball in his hands after the catch. He is a master technician. He breaks away from tackles. He has tremendous leaping ability and great hands. I love CeeDee Lamb also.
All right, good stuff. So Jonathan Taylor is our winner of this contest. He is the 101 according to Twitter. Let's just get your quick thoughts on Mr. Jonathan Taylor, John.
So I went into the process. I would not have expected to come out that Jonathan Taylor was going to be, to me, the number one dynasty asset. And I loved him at Wisconsin, and I had him in that top three with Dobbins, Swift, and Taylor. But, man, I cannot deny the athletic ability that we saw at the Combine. His athletic ability is in that Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott class. Man, he is 5'10", 226 pounds. This is a big locomotive moving down the tracks. I love him. He's my number one dynasty asset.
All right. Ryan, quick thoughts on Mr. Jonathan Taylor.
I mean, there's not much you can say that he did. He's a star. His athleticism was... People were talking about him being a track star. It was kind of hard to imagine because he is so enormous. At 230 pounds? He's going to decimate guys, even in the NFL. He runs so hard between the tackles. He can run outside. He can break big plays. He is a complete package as a runner. He can be a 20-plus carry game guy, and he's shown he can do it already. I can see him doing that in the NFL. I'm excited to see where he lands.
All right, good stuff, guys. That is our winner, Jonathan Taylor. I know we're up against the clock here. We've kind of gone quite a bit over here, but we did have one more.
All my fault. I'm sorry.
It's all good, John. I can't, you got all that energy, man. I can't cut you short, man. It's just, it's great podcasting for sure.
I'm glad we moved this Friday.
Yeah, exactly. No one's got to work tomorrow. I did have one last question for you over on YouTube. Mr. Kyle Senrod's got one more question. I know he's a big fan of this guy. He actually did a write-up at goingfor2.com for us, profile this guy. And I'm just curious on your thoughts, John, on Mr. JaMycal Hasty. What are your thoughts on him?
I have him as an undrafted free agent grade. I understand there were some people who really, really like him when you look back in early January. He was not the type of prospect that I'm looking for to be in the NFL. Now, look, at running back is one of those positions we just see Raheem Mostert come out of, 6 years to finally become an asset in fantasy football. So he does have some skills that I think can translate to the NFL, but I don't think he's a draftable asset. Obviously, if he went in the 5th round, I would look at him in more detail, but I don't think he's going to be drafted, at least in my book right now. I'm always open to changing my mind if the draft capital changes. I can't imagine him going before round 5. Maybe he's a round 6 late round pick. But, Jeff, you promised me one more question that I've done tons of research on.
Yes.
And I'm hoping you ask that question.
Yes, definitely. We always get to that last question there. And, of course, that is the Forgotten Fantasy Player. Let's get to that one.
Get ready for goingfor2.com's Forgotten Fantasy Player of the Week.
All right, John, I want to hear this one. This has got to be a good one because Mr. Ryan McDowell had a great one last week. So give me who you got.
Man, he is one of my favorites, and I won 2 fantasy titles with him in the 90s. I go so far back. The first time I went to the Bahamas on vacation was the Fiesta Bowl in 1987. And if you don't remember this game, you are not a lifetime college football historian like myself. I'm talking Penn State University of Miami. And there was nothing better than watching Miami come off of the plane in fatigues, talking smack, and Penn State and Joe Paterno wearing those ties. And they just bamboozled Vinny Testaverde. Now, he was a bust with the Bucks, But man, in 1996, he landed in a scrumptious situation with the Baltimore Ravens, my friends. He had Ted Marchibroda as his coach. Marchibroda coached Burt Jones. That's right. If you don't know Burt Jones, look him up, folks. There's a thing called the internet. You gotta know Burt Jones, man. He was MVP of the league. Unbelievable. So Vinny lands there. No one wanted him. I pick him up off the goddamn waiver wire. Vinny Testaverde goes out, 4,177 yards passing, 33 touchdowns.
Wow.
Now, you got to remember, 1996, you don't get 30 touchdowns. Only Brett Favre. He was awesome. And you know why he was so tasty? The Ravens sucked. They were 4-12. He was the master of garbage time production. I loved it. Going to the bar, watching the Ravens, drinking beers, rooting like crazy for my man Vinny. I'll never forget 1996.
All right. That is awesome for two reasons. One, I think Ryan McDowell last week had the first quarterback that we'd mentioned on the Forgotten. We've been doing this for almost, 2 years now, Ryan? He had Brian Leftwich as his quarterback. That was the first QB mentioned. And, of course, now we go back-to-back weeks with the quarterback. And not to mention, Ryan is a huge Ravens fan, so that also gets the twofold there with Ryan. So good stuff, man. I appreciate it.
Now, his Ravens.
Were you born in 1996?
Yeah, I was at right age of 11. He was their all-time single-season touchdown leader till this year.
Wow.
Yep.
That's awesome. That is an awesome one. I love it. All right, guys. Like I said, we're up against the clock. We're at an hour and a half now, so I apologize to those of y'all that have been hanging with us. But this has been great podcasting. Let's just go by the room really quick. Drop your Twitter handle and let us know what you're working on, John.
You can find me on Gridiron Scholar 91 on Twitter. I couldn't afford the A and the R when I signed up in 2014, so I had to give something back. So find me there. All my written profiles are on footballdiehards.com for the 7th year in a row. I'm so privileged to work with Bob Harris and Emil Cadillac at the footballdiehards.com. And this year I'm working with the guys at the Dynasty draftroom.com, and I'm doing a profile series. Thanks. I'm doing a profile series with my friend and teammate Matt, and just go to dynastydraftroom.com and you can see our video profiles.
All right, good stuff. And Ryan, you're also with dynastydraftroom.com, and you just released your rookie guide. You mentioned it to open there, so give us your Twitter handle and what you're working on.
Ryan Sirpas, Fantasy FB Connect. Dynasty Draft. I'm here at Dynasty Draft Room. Draft Guide just came out today. Go buy, get yourself some reading material while you're locked inside, can't go anywhere. It's only $10. It's well worth it. We have 91 offensive players, fantasy players profiled, in-depth, 10 different categories per player for their traits. We have stats, combine stuff, recruiting. We have everything on there. Check it out. It's worth it. And the graphics are unbelievable. Mark killed it. Catch me here every Tuesday, Friday, or whatever we feel like doing it nowadays. Then the Going for Two War Room, where we're also doing player profiles on little 5-minute clips. We should be recording more of them soon as well. I think we have one or two more still coming out.
Yep.
So check that out as well.
All right. Yeah, good stuff, guys. And as Ryan mentioned, we got some more war rooms to come out here pretty soon. So, 5-minute clips on one rookie or one prospect each time we do it. It's a quick watch. You can go back on our YouTube channel and catch any ones that you may have missed. As always, I'm Jeff. You can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77, at GoingFor2.com as always, and here every Tuesday and Friday night. That's a wrap.